are suffering the effect of Zika or the terrorism factor.
Hey Dave, it's your round, mate.
Yeah, my throat's drier than the Gobi Desert.
All right. Beers all round, yeah? OK, which one of you jokers has got my wallet?
Well, I haven't got it. God, he'll do anything to save a few quid.
Yeah, that's right. He's always had short arms and long pockets.
Seriously, guys, someone's nicked it from my bag.
If you lose your wallet, passport or tickets while you're on holiday, your mates winding you up will be the least of your worries. Keep your valuable stuff locked up safely when you don't need it. And if you're on the beach or by the pool, only take the cash you need.
For more information, go to gov.uk/knowbeforeyougo or follow us on Facebook or Twitter.
Checking it out before you check in on the John Guinn Travel Show on ukhealthradio.com. My guest this week is Frank Brehany from Holiday Travel Watch. We're talking about travel consumer rights in general, but at the moment we're talking about airport security. And as Frank is a regular traveller, I was wondering what his thoughts are on the security arrangements at airports at the moment. The terrorism factor made massive changes to airport security, and I go through security an awful lot. And although the liquid laws have been in place for a long time, people still seem unaware when they get to the front of the queue. They ignore all the signs. It's a big frustration for regular travellers.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I feel that some of the checks that the security do won't stop anything. They're just more about, look, we're doing something than actually doing something. So what does Holiday Travel Watch feel about the levels of UK security at the moment?
It's a question I've been asked a great deal about over the last 12 months. Look, basically all our airport security throughout the European Union is governed by a European directive or regulation. And that regulation transmits directly into each member state. But each member state then also adds to those laws. And in the UK, we have what we call a single consolidated directive. And the enforcer, if you like, of that directive is the Civil Aviation Authority. Now, we tried to access detail about this single consolidated directive through, through Freedom of Information Act application. You won't be surprised to hear, John, that many of my questions were refused an answer on the basis of security. But if you look to the European regulation, it covers an extensive area where airports and airlines and governments have to consider, if you like, the zoning of airports, or if you like, our travel hubs, but particularly airports, and the security that they supply. Now, you can see in the regulation what those obligations are. But as I say, it's up to each member state then to build into that. So then you fast forward to what happened to Brussels, and one of the managers, I think, of Brussels Airport says, well, we have to balance security with economic interests. And my response to that was, no, actually, what we have to do is to place security at the forefront of what goes on, because security is not just about going through, taking your belts off and going through the scanners and everything else. Security, to me, is about the zoning. At the zoning around airports, we have to create, in my view, a much broader, perhaps even more aggressive way in which we deal with security at airports, in fact, all our travel hubs. Some people offer the mantra, we must not give in to terrorism. And my response has been, well, yes, okay, I think we all share that mantra, but what do you mean by that? And very few commentators actually provide that solution. But, I went through Brussels Airport the other day, and you can see the beginnings of the thinking behind the we must not give in to terror kind of mantra, because they have already created zones security zones and you pass through those various security zones, there is no traffic that can get within now, by the looks of this, any more than, say, 200 or 300 meters of the terminal. And there is a fair bit of walking to do, and you have to go through that particular security. And I have to say, I felt that the security was far better than the average security that I had experienced in various European airports over the last 12 months, quite possibly as a result of what happened at Brussels a few weeks ago. But the question now is Brussels Airport creating the template? Because it's not just what we can see as passengers, it also has to be what goes on airside. Much of the water that we buy, much of the products that we buy airside has to go through the airport security zone. Mm-hmm. And so therefore I think consumers need to be, and also the airlines need to also have to understand sort of what extent of checks, what kind of security is being placed on those products that enter the airport. In the same way about people who are employed at the airport. Paris Charles de Gaulle has a problem, or has had several problems, with a number of people who have, shall we say, colourful histories prior to them being employed at the airport. And there is now a big debate going on about creating a clean zone around an aircraft. So whilst we may have been irritated by security, my view is I'm certainly not going to give in to terror, but I say we have to have a big debate about this. And if it means that we have to become inconvenienced, so be it, in my view. I think if it inconveniences us, it will inconvenience these criminals who commit these acts. And I think we have to get smart in our thinking about this. And I think in some respects, I suspect the UK Single Consolidated Directive, this law that I don't know what it says, probably either deals with some of these issues or start to look at these issues, or should be looking at these issues now. And indeed, in every single European country, the same debate will be had. But perhaps, perhaps Brussels Airport is the developing template from here on in. But, my view, my prediction is we are going to see changes in airport security, and I think in travel hub security, as the next 12 months develops. And I will say, if we don't, then it'll be woe betide the authorities if they have failed to learn the extensive lessons of the last 12 months.
You're listening to The Travel Show with John Guinn on UKHealthRadio.com. I'm speaking to Frank from Holiday Travel Watch. We're talking travel consumer rights, although at the moment we're actually talking about security. Part of security for the travellers is what the Foreign and Commonwealth Office give out as advice. It can be dry reading. It is in civil servant speak. It could put you off travelling absolutely anywhere because they obviously want to cover themselves for any eventuality. The FCO is coming up with a new way of putting this information out for consumers to read, so it'll be easier for them to understand. It's been in the travel trade press that ABTA aren't too keen on the new scheme, so I was interested what Frank had to say on the new Foreign and Commonwealth Office advisories.
Not only have I seen the system, I've had a couple of meetings at the Foreign Office, and we've submitted our own reports to the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. I mean, it could be that in light of the changing environments for travellers, that the Foreign Office or events, or the Foreign Office has decided that it's time to look at these issues. I am not convinced at all about the proposals. Our views were quite simple, that effectively they should be scrapped and it should be started again. And started from the point of view of creating a content that is informative. informative in the information that it provides, providing links to external information. So, for example, last year I was looking at a number of press items, say, for example, in and around Egypt and Tunisia, particularly Tunisia. I've also been looking at a number of press items in Mallorca, for example, which would suggest that there are a number of risks, apparent to anybody intending to visit some of those countries or destinations or resorts. And the problem for Foreign Office advice is, and I fear that this will continue, I think this is a sticking plaster solution, is that we will continue. I'll give you a good example. The Sharm el-Sheikh advices talk about, currently they talk about, if you are within the perimeter barrier area, those are their words, not mine, then subject to any guidance they give in the advices, you are safe to go to, as long as you're within the perimeter barrier area. But there's 2 points from that. The first is, what do they mean by perimeter barrier area? And why is there a perimeter barrier area? Are they keeping the consumer travellers in a particular area, or are they trying to keep something out? And indeed, what is the risk associated with a perimeter barrier area? But then the second point here is, within the perimeter barrier area is Sharm el-Sheikh Airport. And they are saying that you should not travel, all but essential travel, to Sharm el-Sheikh Airport. So you've got a contradiction going on. It's safe to go to Sharm el-Sheikh according to the advisories, but not to Sharm el-Sheikh, which is airport, which is within the perimeter barrier area. And I suspect if I was to spend enough time looking at the travel advisories, I may well find other contradictions like that. And that's why we say it needs to be started again. Adding additional color coding, adding different categories is interesting. I think that's probably as far as I go, to say the least. But I really think it just needs a root and branch reform. One of the contradictions in the advisories is that you as a consumer can read those advisories, but if you scroll down, you'll also find that there's a link to business travellers. And if you click through, because it doesn't have business travel advice to all countries, but to a good number of countries across a number of continents. But if you look at those travel advisories for business, they actually offer a far more detailed set of advices than the general advices. And so my argument was, even if you were not going to change anything else, why don't you just merge the two sets of information together? Why does it have to be separate? Why are you giving a higher precedence to business as opposed to the ordinary citizen or the ordinary holidaymaker? So, as I say, I fear that they will probably use the sticking plaster option. I think they've got a problem in terms of the actual advices themselves about how many people look at them. Our own survey on travel advisories, we found that only 33% actually went to the FCO advices. Majority of people extract their information, it seems, from the media, which is probably not the best place sometimes. Or indeed, if they've been going to resorts for a number of years, they may already have a good familiarity, or they may know people in resorts and so on and so forth. I have suggested to the Foreign Office that probably one of the things that they could do was to actually combine the advisories with the Know Before You Go campaign to create a free app, which every time you buy a travel insurance product or you buy a holiday, you get that app, so that it automatically feeds you with those advices for that particular country. But the advices cannot just simply be what the British government thinks at that time, it needs to be